What's going on, YouTube? We're back with another topic that we have featured pretty frequently on this channel, but some things are cyclical for a good reason. And this time it's because we had a pretty touching and very vulnerable interview from a legend in the Street Fighter and FGC scene, and that is from Xian here. Xian and Mike Ross have been doing their content on the Versus Vortex channel for quite some time now. And it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy what they're putting out on this channel. And this interview, Xian is often known for being very positive, kind of a troll, always joking around, being very funny. But in this interview, it's him discussing how he feels after Capcom Cup this year, after he had placed 9th place in the first season Capcom Cup, the $1 million tournament for Street Fighter 6, and gets pretty real about the economics of his situation and the economics of being a pro player. And I thought this section here, I'm gonna let it play out in full, was pretty real of Xian. So let's go ahead and take a listen here.
When the tournament was over, I just feel really sad. Okay, so there's something about being a professional player, right? It's not as rewarding in this generation for fighting games compared to being a streamer, a content creator, or anything. I spent months preparing for my opponent, practicing it hard. No one could see anything, right? They just see what's happening on the stage. But the result is I just get $5,000 home. It's about $1,005 a month for all the hard work, the amount of hours that we put in. Being a content creator is a lot better, or streamers way better in this generation, just because prize money isn't really that rewarding if you don't get top 2 or top 3. And the fact is, you can be a content creator, you can do streaming and stuff, doesn't mean you can win the championship. It may not make a difference, because in this era, games are catered in a way, even if you don't play as much, you can win it. Just that when you work harder, the percentage is higher just by a little bit. So I think it's just not as rewarding being a professional gamer in this era, and I hope to see a little bit shift of change, so that there'll be more people motivated, to just be a professional gamer and solely not relying on anything else, which I feel fighting games has failed in this aspect.
Fighting games have failed in this aspect. I'm hoping that more people can rely on solely being a professional player and nothing else. Yeah, Xian here is talking about the diminishing returns of being a professional player in this era, and how economically you're incentivized to pursue many different avenues. And I've talked about that at length on this channel. And I can understand why Xian is talking about this today, because like I said, this is after his 9th place finish at Capcom Cup. He actually had a great run. He had one of the most difficult groups, the DJ group, and he came out on top, and he beat Fudo and Snake Eyes to make it out of his groups and winners, but eventually ended up just in 9th place. And if you look at the pricing, Uma eating good, $1 million in first, top 3 doing good, $200,000, $100,000 to NL in 4th, and then bam, look at the fall off to 5th place, $10,000. So I feel the most bad for DCQ and Lashar, because they basically lost $90,000 money matches. But Xian himself finished in 9th place for $5,000. And he basically mentions that, with all the work I put in, it's like I got paid $500 a month while grinding for this tournament, and it's just really not worth the time investment. And the reality of being a pro player and the economics of it, I've talked about at length, right? Tons of videos on this channel discussing the economics of being a professional fighting game player, how to actually make money playing fighting games, the content creation reality of fighting games. I really like how to actually make money playing fighting games. That's one of my favorite videos I've ever done that really goes into depth on this topic to a degree. And I've even talked about it with Rob TV, professional Kendrick Drake rap beef reactor Rob TV. Before he was into the music react game, we even did discussions, uncensored FGC debate with Maximilian, Dude, Sonic Fox, Rob TV, Brian F, talking about these sorts of things. It's been a discussion point for a very long time, right? And so here's a screenshot from my own video of how to actually make money playing fighting games, breaking down where money actually comes from and the realities of being a professional player, because for the most part, it's not possible to be making money from tournaments just being a professional fighting game player and solely focusing on actually just winning tournaments. Like, your main job of being a fighting game player actually isn't your main job, right? The economic influences have shown that winning tournaments is not where you make money, because unless you are actually first place there's too much risk involved to pursue that goal because the prize pools are so top heavy. And I don't think that's ever going to change. I mean, I talk about this, how you make money. So a lot of players, they make some money from tournaments, but you really don't make any unless you're like Mena RD or your Uma and have the God run and get the job done, right? You have to be so consistently in the top 0.0001% and win these tournaments that you can't be part of the field of the 20 or so players that are vying for that championship spot that are at that level where they can actually get that win. You have to be the guy that day, which means it's just too risky. Not enough people can be fed in that kind of ecosystem where there's no guaranteed income from being a high-level player, right? So invitationals and leagues like Street Fighter League do actually try to address some of those issues, but it's still very limited slots, and the pay depends on the league. I don't know if Street Fighter League USA and EU are actually paying people much, if at all, but Japan, I think, is finding a lot of success in employing their players and having a league of consistent players, sort of like, an MLB, an NBA, an NFL, actually having players that are potentially getting salaries for participating in a live ongoing season of competition, where their job is to be professional players, but their job is really to get eyeballs on you, right? So also some of these players do have sponsors, but the sponsor economy, this is venture capitalist funds. The bubbles grow and burst, and overall in esports in general, the bubble is popping all over the place, right? Many different esports organizations are shutting down, not just fighting games. So it's always a toss-up if you can even get into a sponsored position where you get a salary. But really, problem is content creation is really the place where you're incentivized the most. Being a top-level competitive player is good, but it's more rewarding to be a good competitive player that pivots that success and that notoriety into a successful content creation career than it is to continually try to pursue being the best. Because unless you're consistently winning first place or you win the million, you're not going to be making a good return on investment for your time, right? So Xian, I mean, he's been active since 2009. He's been doing this for such a long time. Total winnings, 229,225 from 2009. What is that? 15 years? If I can do the math correctly. So 229,225 divided by 15 years, right? Of course, these are estimates. I'm sure there's more money elsewhere. This doesn't include things like if he has a salary, any endorsements he's done, other avenues of his career where he could have potentially earned money. But over 15 years, $15,281 per year. That is below minimum wage. This is a guy who has qualified for Capcom Cup essentially every single year. He's an Evo champion. He's one of the most consistent players of all time, and he's making, if you average out over his career, $15,000 a year. Okay, Mena RD though, how about this? The most dominant player right now in Street Fighter 6, two-time Capcom Cup champion, just won Evo Japan. Approximate total winnings 551,383, active since 2016. Let's see what he's averaging per year. 551,000 winnings. That's pretty good. That's a big number right there, right? 2016. What is that? That's 8 years. 8 years now. $68,922 per year, which is decent money, but that's not much for being considered the most dominant player in Street Fighter 6 and the only two-time Capcom Cup champion. Of course, once again, other income streams for these players at this level. They have sponsors who I would assume are paying them salary. I don't know for sure because many sponsors are fake and don't actually give you money. They just pay for your travel if you're, not getting screwed over and just representing an org for absolutely no return, just a jersey on your back for no reason. So, 68,000 per year, which is good, but I still think compared to the time investment, it's not great. And then Punk, same thing, 520,000. He's going to be making pretty similar money right there. 520,000 from tournament winnings. He was the most dominant Street Fighter V player for a good long stretch there, and he's averaging 65,000 a year from tournament winnings. I guarantee you, Punk is making more from his content creation and sponsorship and like especially his Panda era endeavors. He's making more money from that. Much more money from that than his tournament winnings. And then if you look at even Xian, Evo champion, you win Evo as Xian, you get $5,893. How many Evo champions give it up because you win Evo and then nothing comes of it? You get maybe $5,000 if you were in a Street Fighter tournament or like a Marvel or maybe a Guilty Gear when Strive released. Many players eventually can't support themselves by winning tournaments, right? The prize pools have improved since then, right? So I do want to be fair. Well, here, let's look at the last year for Street Fighter V. Kawano won Street Fighter V Evo, and you might be like, oh, they improved, right? 5,893 back in 2013. Then 2022, Kawano won Street Fighter V Evo, 5,560. Somehow the prize pool went down. It did improve in the next years, to be fair, right? Because Evo finally made an effort to have some kind of guaranteed pricing. So in 2023, beyond just having a gazillion people entering the event, they did guarantee more minimum pricing. So $20,000 for first, $15,000 for second, and prizing out through top 16. So that is an improvement of the situation. But it just goes to show, you know, you can win these tournaments and not make much money. Mena RD, $15,000 for second in Evo USA. What did he get for winning Evo Japan just now? $6,325. So the prize pools are not sustainable, and you get 7th out of 5,000 people, you get no money. So you got to understand, prize pools for tournaments, they generally come from the entry fee from the players participating in them. Evo Japan tournaments have different rules because they have rules about gambling. But for the years like where Xian won Evo, Kawano won Evo, the 100% of the prize pool came from the number of players entered. So 1,637 players, they put $10 in. The prize pool is $16,370. So it doesn't scale. This kind of prizing where players are paying into a pot to enter, it doesn't scale at all. Like you keep adding more and more players, it's going to be you're going to have the entire state of Ohio eventually in one tournament to have a suitable prize pool to pay out, like, you know, the top 8, right? To have something of a significant prize pool. The money doesn't work that way. You can't scale this up to a degree where people are actually making full-time income from being a consistently successful top level player. It just doesn't exist. So a lot of people, when you talk about this, especially in YouTube comments, they're like, if you're not first, you're last. You know, that's the talk of a scrub, or that's not a championship mentality. I want everyone who doesn't get first to starve to death and to repent for their unwillingness to give it their all and win. And only the champion deserves to eat, which I think is a complete medieval mentality. But people love to watch competitors suffer, right? Especially from a distance. It's definitely just the same mentality as like watching the gladiators duke it out. When you're not involved in the situation at all, you just want to watch gladiators kill each other. UFC is actually kind of like that when it comes to this. True, and that's terrible. I think in general, most 1v1 sports have this problem, which is why I think Street Fighter League is trying to exist and trying to rectify that to a degree. So what Xian is referring to is a real problem, right? Because what happens is so many players end up pivoting from being a full-time professional player focusing on their career to doing things like content creation, because you can pivot your success at a fighting game to content creation, right? We see players like Punk focus on that. We see players like Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes' job is to be godlike at Zangief and then stream, right? That's what he does. That's his main gig right now. And he's pivoted being the best Zangief player in the world to being a successful streamer. One thing that we see is that in NA in the Western world, where we have a really poor infrastructure and poor sponsor system, and the tournament scene doesn't support these kind of payouts, most of the time our top players grow up and move on. They are forced to move on and forced to do something else to make money, right? Like you just have to pay the bills. It's fun in your 20s to be a bum and banking it all on a dream and taking Greyhound buses around to tournaments and trying to scrape by and win a few thousand there, a few hundred there, and try to make the dream happen. But at some point, most of the players that are our strongest, most talented players through the years, they end up just, they grow up and get a regular job, right? And that's forced upon them by the economic realities, or they pivot and do content creation. Yeah, it's a more consistent paycheck. So not every player is cut out to doing content creation, right? And I think that's a travesty. I would prefer if players could focus on content creation, right? Not everyone has the personality or the desire or the work ethic in that regard to do content creation. I don't think someone like, I don't know, who's a top player that Uma. Does Uma seem like he wants to be the guy who does content creation? Chris Wong. Does Chris Wong seem like he wants to be the guy doing YouTube thumbnail faces? So there's players who I would love a world where they could just simply focus on playing. But over time, the economic reality does not allow that. They have to pivot and do something else. And I mentioned that in my videos before, like the FGC needs a reality check and things of that nature, where the reality of it right now is your job is always to get eyeballs on you. We're part of the attention economy, right? Even when you're a successful professional player, how do you make money? your prize pool has come from, currently the system is the number of entrants in the tournament. So if you have more people interested in the game, more people enter the tournament, more pot monsters are there funding the pot, more money for you. Or the tournaments themselves get so much viewership that it attracts sponsors to the event, which they're able to put the prize funding from the sponsors into the prize pool. You make more money from the tournament. Or your success built so much buzz and notoriety via the tournaments, via social media channels, that sponsors want to put their logo on your back, and you get paid from the sponsor, so you get attention and eyeballs on their logo and their brands because they make deals with other brands. And once again, no matter which way you boil it down, it's all about the attention economy. That is what pays the bills when you are a fighting game player. So if performing well at tournaments and consistent at tournaments, but maybe not winning, doesn't pay the bills, you're going to have to get that attention in some other way. And that's just the reality of it. I don't love that. I enjoy doing it myself because I enjoy sharing about fighting games and talking about them. And I'm someone who's been built to do this, right? Like, I enjoy doing this. I enjoy sharing and discussing fighting games. So I have benefited from this reality. However, I would love if people who aren't about that life can just focus on being sick, and I would want them to be able to play for a long time and have longevity. Because you look at Street Fighter League Japan, they have a live weekly system where throughout the season, all these teams backed by real sponsors are actually playing weekly events. All these matches have guaranteed screen times. It's a real league, like what you would watch in the NFL. And it's actually gained a lot of steam, a lot of traction. So beyond just the decent pricing for the top teams, these players, I assume, are getting salary. I don't want to say that for certain, but my assumption is these are sponsored players getting paid a salary to be able to afford to live while they're playing these games. And look at the people in the teams. We have people like Goichi, Fenrich, Kazunoko, Dogura, Gachikun, Pugera, Sako's in here, Daigo's in here, John Takeuchi, Itabashi, Zangief. You have people who are legacy players who have been able to be a pro player, almost exclusively a pro player. I know a lot of these people tend to do some content creation as well, but a lot of these players are exclusively pro players. They get a salary and they have longevity in the FGC. So we have storied players like Tokido and Daigo and legends that we've been able to appreciate their skill across many different games for decades because they've been able to support themselves financially to be able to do this comfortably for a living. So the situation for pro players in Japan is actually much different than it is in any other scene in the world. And I wish we could have that. I wish we could have players who are just dedicated to being the best they could be so I could watch them. I'm a fan of the game. I would love to see Snake Eyes at more tournaments. I would love if Pierre Rog was more of a consistent competitor. Justin Wong was still giving it his all on the sticks. But for all these people, it doesn't make sense for them to focus on just about competing. And it's too high stakes. It's if you're not first, you're last, essentially. So why would they invest all that emotional time, effort, and get no financial return for it, right? Xian is speaking to something that's very true, and I don't have a solution for it. My solution is, if you are trying to pursue being a professional player, you definitely need to have your brand built and do content and other things that make sense for you to be able to support yourself and grow your brand. Because once again, your 100% of your pay is based on the attention economy, either through success in competing in tournaments or through content creation, generating buzz other ways. No matter what you're doing, it's all about attention, right? So you have to do that right now. And, I wish it wasn't the case. Daigo streams pretty often as well. Yeah, Daigo streams, Tokido streams and does a lot of content. A lot of the Japanese pros do content as well, but some of them don't. And what my point is, it's not required. It's still beneficial. They see a lot of return Kazunoko streams, I think, on YouTube, and gets huge viewership. So it makes sense for them to do that, right? I would still advise you, if you're in that position, to still stream. Like these are things that you should do no matter what if you're a professional player. But what I'm saying is, it's not 100% required, and it's not as much of a grind for them. Like, a lot of their streams are them just practicing. It's them practicing. It's not them doing, Daigo sometimes does different things. Tokido definitely does different things. A lot of them do different types of content, but a lot of it is them just practicing. However, I will say there is some positive things coming out in the economics of being a pro player. Like Chris Wong just recently got signed to Fnatic, huge esports organization. Fnatic is back in the Street Fighter game. They're mostly known for Counter-Strike, but they did used to have some squads back in like the Gfinity EU days, where they had sort of like a Street Fighter League before Street Fighter League. event going on, and they would sponsor teams, and they even sponsored Perfect Legend way back in the day. So they're back in the Street Fighter game, picking up Chris Wong, one of the most consistent players out of season 1, winning CPT France, second at Capcom Cup, second at the Asia East Regional Final, and Singapore Offline. So that's a huge place for Chris Wong, a guy who just plays the game, right? JB's on C9. Yeah, a lot of orgs are actually picking up players here and there, prepping themselves and positioning themselves to have the Golden Goose for season 2. So there are some positives right now. Yeah, the old Street Fighter 6 logo, yeah, they're definitely not using the up-to-date logo, but I kind of like it. You know, everyone ragged on this logo. It kind of works with this this graphic they set up. It actually matches weirdly in this context. But that is the out-of-date temp logo, which is like a default font that someone found. But that said, yeah, it's not a great situation. So Xian says it's not worth it to be exclusively a professional player. I agree. I think for 99.99% of top-level players, you have to do something content. You have to branch out, you have to build a brand. In an ideal world, I would love it if that wasn't the case. And that's not the world we live in. I would love players to be able to continue to play for years, to hone their craft, to focus on being the best they could possibly be, because I want to see the best of the best clash. I love the passion from nerds who just want to push their game to the limits and see titans collide, because I'm just a fan of the game, right? So hopefully we can still build a future where people can pursue this stupid passion because enough of us care. If that's not the case, then, you know, so be it as well. People will still play out of love of the game, but I do hope for a better future for those crazy enough to try to pursue being the best Street Fighter player on the planet. The FGC just isn't big enough to support a healthy amount of professionals no matter what system you use. Yeah, I'm not denying that. It's all a pipe dream. That's why I keep saying the reality is you can make a living being a professional fighting game player. Be Meta RD or start working on your YouTube thumbnail face. Time to learn Photoshop. Make the mouth bigger. Bigger.